Hello everyone. In the previous lecture, we had discussed about processes and threads. In this lecture, we will be discussing about concurrency and deadlock. Now let us see why concurrency is required. In case of process management in operating system, it can be widely categorized into three types. First is multi-programming, second is multiprocessing, and third is distributed processing. Multi-programming means that multiple processes are present in a system with a single processor, and multiprocessing means that multiple processes in multiple processor with a single system, and in case of distributed system it means multiple processes in multiple systems. In this case, all the processes cooperate, communicate and compete with each other, which are running parallelly or which are interleaved to give an appearance of running parallelly. In this case, concurrency is one of the most important topic as far as operating system design is concerned. Now let us see what concurrency is. Concurrency is the process in which instruction sequences are executed at the same time. It is either simultaneously executed or shown to be executed at the same time. It is usually performed in operating systems which have lots of process threads running in parallel. In case of multiple processes running in parallel, all these processes are communicated with each other using shared memory or using message passing technique. Now let us see some of the problems and principles as far as concurrency is concerned. Concurrency is the process in which multiple processes are interleaved in such a way that it shows as if all the processes are running in parallel. But it is not the same as parallelism. In case of parallelism, genuinely all processes are run in parallel, but in case of concurrency, only it is shown as if it is run in parallel. But the problems as far as concurrency is concerned are similar to that of parallelism. Now let us see a fundamental problem as far as concurrency is concerned. The fundamental problem of concurrency is that accessing of shared resources is difficult and it is interfered by other processes. Now let us take a simple example to explain this situation. For example, in a code we have getChar of a value which is stored in chin, and then the chin value is stored in chout, and using putchar this value is displayed. Now we have two processes P1 and P2, both are accessing the code at the same time. First P1 accesses the code and then it gives the value of x variable to chin, and then it goes out to perform another task. Simultaneously P2 is accessing the same code, and in this time it gives the value of variable y to this code, and then it displays the value of y and then it exits, and then P1 comes and it receives the code. In this case, when the output is displayed, the value of chin will be y and not x. So it comes to an error. The reason for this error is because once the P1 was accessing the code and it left, P2 came and accessed the code and the value of changed. So from this we will be having the solution that when one process is accessing a code, that particular code should not be accessed by another process. This is called as critical section. This critical section should not be accessed by other process. So this condition is called as mutual exclusion. Now let us see what mutual exclusion is. Mutual exclusion is one of the basic issues as far as concurrency is concerned. In case of mutual exclusion, it is a requirement that whenever there is a process P which is approaching a resource R, then no other processes should be able to access this resource R. The resource can be any input output device like printer, scanner, or it can be a file, or it can be a shared resource or a data structure. Now let us see what are the approaches as far as mutual exclusion is concerned. The first approach is mutual exclusion using software approach, that is the process is itself given ability to do mutual exclusion. In this case, the process itself is given the work to perform mutual exclusion. It has a high overhead and error rate is also more. The next type of mutual exclusion can be performed using hardware, that is special machine instruction can be given in order to perform mutual exclusion. In this case, it is faster as compared to the software, but it cannot avoid deadlock and starvation. The third type of mutual exclusion can be performed taking the help of operating system or programming language. They contain semaphores, monitors and message passing techniques. Now let us see some of the basic approaches of mutual exclusion using operating system. The first such approach is semaphores. The basic idea behind semaphore is that the processes can communicate between each other using a global counter. This counter is initialized to a non-zero positive number and it can be accessed using only two atomic operators, one is semWait and another is semSignal. The semSignal is used to increment the semaphore variable x more than 1, that is it can be increased each time into 1, and then the semWait is used to check what is the value of the semaphore variable. If it is greater than 1, then the process is continued and the semaphore variable x is decremented by 1, and if the value of semaphore variable x is equal to 1, then the process is blocked till the process is exited and then this process is sent into it. This is how the semaphore process occurs. The critical code section is between the semWait and the semSignal. So whenever a particular process starts to access the critical code section, it first checks the semWait, and if no process is available or if the x is greater than 0, then that process can access the critical code section, and if critical code section is accessed, then the x is reduced by 1, and finally when it goes out, then the x is again incremented by 1 using the semSignal section. In general, the number of processes able to access the critical section has to be determined using the semaphore variable x. So if we are giving the semaphore variable as 2, then 2 processes can access at a time, and if 3 processes are trying to access, then it is blocked using the semWait, and once one process comes out, then using the semSignal the determination is taken and then this other process can access it. The next approach by operating system is called as monitors. Monitors is very similar to semaphores, but in case of semaphores it is called throughout the program, so it is very difficult to correct. So in such cases we use monitor as an overall object. In this case we are using a higher level structure where the data is the semaphore variable and the operators are public. So all the processes can operate it, and as it is combined into a single object, it is much easier to access. Let us see the last approach of mutual exclusion technique, which is message passing. In case of message passing, the processes are present in isolation and they can communicate with each other by sending and receiving of messages. In such cases, synchronization between the processes takes place by blocking mechanism which is attached with sending and receiving messages. In such cases, the combination which is quite commonly used is that of non-blocking send. In non-blocking send, the processes can send message and they are continuing with the processing, and in case of blocking receive, whenever they want to receive a message, they will block till that particular message is received. This is the most commonly used mutual exclusion technique which can be used for a set of processes present within a mailbox. In such case, the critical code section is present in between the receive box and the send box. Now let us see what deadlock is. Deadlock is defined as permanent blocking of a set of processes. Each process is blocked because they are communicating with each other or competing for a set of global resources. In this case, each process is waiting for a trigger to happen from another blocked process in the set. Let us take an example of two processes P and Q. In this case, both the processes need the same set of resources A and B. Here, P is having the resource A and it is waiting for the resource B, while process Q is having resource B and it is waiting for the resource A. This is called as deadlock. Now let us see some of the basic conditions why a deadlock occurs. Deadlock can occur only based on the three necessary conditions. The first condition is mutual exclusion, that is, in case of certain resources, only one process can access the resource at a time. This is called as mutual exclusion. The second condition is hold and wait, that is, a process will be waiting for another resource while it is holding one resource. The third condition is no preemption, that is, we cannot force a particular process to leave a resource. There is one more condition which is reason for actual deadlock. This is called as circular wait. In circular wait, there is a set of processes which are closely knit. In this case, each process are blocked in such a way that they are having some resources and waiting for some resources from processes in the same set which themselves are blocked. Now let us see in detail about deadlock prevention. Deadlock prevention can be performed by adapting one of the two policies given below. The first policy is an indirect method in which we disallow one of the three necessary conditions, and the second is a direct method in which we disallow the set of processes which will lead to a circular weight. Now let us see how we can adapt these policies into the conditions already discussed. The first one is mutual exclusion. In case of mutual exclusion, it is very important, and as a result we cannot avoid mutual exclusion. The second one is hold and wait. In case of hold and wait, what we can do is that we can force all the processes to say all the requisite resources, and only if all the required resources are available, the process will be granted the resources and then it can continue. In such cases, if the resources are not available, the process won't be holding any resources, and as a result it won't block other processes. And in case if all the resources are available, it can proceed. This is a very conventional method which will lead to lot of inefficiency. There are some of the disadvantages of this method. The first one is that in case of a modular program, we do not know which all resources we need in the beginning of the process itself. Secondly, in case of the processes which need lots of resources, it will have to wait for a long time till all the resources are free. And thirdly, since all the resources are idle for a long time, it will lead to lot of inefficiency. Now let us discuss about the next condition, which is no preemption. Here we can force a process to leave a resource in case of two conditions. The first condition is if a process is having one resource's hand and it is requested for another resource which is not available. In such case, we can force the process to leave the resource. Secondly, if the process is having a resource's hand and another process is also requesting for the same resource, then we can force the process to leave this resource. These are the two conditions in which we can force the process to leave the resource. Finally, let us discuss about circular wait. In case of circular wait, we can force the process to request all the resources in a sequential manner. That is, for example, there are two processes P and Q and both require the resources A and B. In such cases, the P should request the resources A and B, and similarly Q should also request the resources A and B. So they both should request the resources in a sequential manner. Similarly, P will be allocated the resources A and B, and Q will also be allocated the resource A and B in a sequential manner. This again is a traditional method which will lead to lot of inefficiency. Now let us discuss about deadlock avoidance in detail. Deadlock avoidance is subtly different from deadlock prevention. In case of deadlock avoidance, we allow all the necessary conditions, but under the condition that deadlock is not occurred. It will be happening in such a way that we will be dynamically allocating the resources in such a way that deadlock won't occur. It happens under two principles. The two basic principles are, first one is that do not start a process if the requisition of that process will lead to a deadlock. It is quite old and inefficient method. The second one is that do not grant a resource if granting of that resource will again lead to deadlock. Basically, the idea is that we have to grant the resources in such a way that there should be additional resources which will lead to completion of the process, and as a result deadlock won't occur. In both the cases, we have to specify the requisite of the resources in the beginning itself. Now let us discuss in detail about deadlock detection and recovery. In case of deadlock prevention as well as deadlock avoidance, we had seen that they were quite old-fashioned methods and had lots of disadvantages. In case of deadlock detection methods, we will be seeing it in an exactly opposite manner. In case of deadlock detection, we will be liberally giving resources as much as required to all the processes and waiting for the deadlock to occur. Once the deadlock is occurred, we will be detecting it using deadlock detection algorithm, and later using deadlock recovery algorithm, we will be recovering the system. In case of deadlock detection, the algorithms are quite similar to the deadlock avoidance algorithm. That is, in the current scenario, which all resources are deadlocked can be found using this. In this case, the number of deadlock detection algorithms to be used can be defined based on the cost of the algorithm and number of deadlocks taking place while giving the resources. Now let us discuss about various recovery algorithms. Each of them vary in their severity. The first one is abort of all the deadlock processes. This is quite severe but quite easily used, and they are quite commonly also used. The second one is backup of all the deadlock processes. In this case, it leads to expensive rollback mechanism and the deadlock can also occur again. The third one is abort of the processes one by one till the deadlock does not exist. And the fourth one is preempting of resources one by one till the deadlock does not exist. In both the cases, it will lead to reduction of global loss of the set of processes. Thus, we have come to the end of the session. Hope you all understood about concurrency and deadlock management. In the coming session, we will be discussing about memory management. Thank you.